You tuned in to Behind the Mic with your girl, Nikki Simone. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I know we've been on a little bit of a hiatus, but we're definitely back, and I can't think of one better way to kick it off with the artists I have coming up. Man, this is one bad poet for so many reasons, and you all are going to just get a glimpse of the conversation that we have. I want you all to listen to what this brother has to say. I mean, he's nationally and internationally known to rock the microphone for sure. But, seriously, I'm serious. This brother is bad. I love his work. I have respect for this brother as a person, as a poet. And I'm so glad that he's spending a little time with me before he gets ready to do his thing. And I can't think of a better place that I'd rather be than hanging out with him at his CD release. And if you're interested in contacting me, you can do so at behindthemic1212@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, make sure you follow us on Twitter on Behind the Mic 121. That's Behind the Mic 121. Also, you can follow up with me on Nikki Simone. That is the page, or you can go to the Facebook page on Behind the Mic. Let the brother know that you enjoy what you heard. So you're in for a treat. So, sit back, relax, get yourself unwind. If you're at work, then, close your cube door. Do what I do on a conference call. Put in a meeting. You know how we do. And if you're home relaxing, I want to give a shout out to you. I'm jealous right now. But we're going to have Dichotomy coming up. So keep it locked on Behind the Mic.
This is the poet Dichotomy, a.k.a. Dichotomy the poet. And if there's one thing that I want the people to know, it is that I am not just a love poet. You see, I just love Behind the Mic with Nikki Simone. Y'all tune in.
I am here in Nashville, Tennessee to celebrate the new release, CD release that is, of one of the baddest poets of our time. I have Nashville, Tennessee's own Dichotomy in the building. Dichotomy, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I am doing wonderful in your city.
Yes, Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome to the Music City.
Thank you. This is my first time here, and I'm really excited, one, to be in a new city, but past all that, Behind the Mic is just here because Dichotomy is dropping his second CD release.
Yeah, really excited about the project. So it's I'm doing a double album, so it's not a double CD per se, but it's actually two separate albums that happen to be released at the exact same time. So I'm excited.
You should be. Well, there is so many people that already follow you. You got your friends, family. Shout out to Tennessee.
Yeah.
I know they're listening. And, but there's some people that we're going to introduce you to. So let's go back. Let's talk a little bit about how you started out when you was just Little V, before you was even Dichotomy.
Right.
What made you start writing?
Well, I had been writing poetry ever since I was in the fourth grade, and it started out with simple things like summer and school and those kind of things. And as I got older, you hit your junior high and high school years and started writing poems to girls and that whole thing.
Right.
But it wasn't really until I had gotten into college that I was exposed to spoken word. And so I would go to open mics, every now and then and just perform. And I was amazed at some of the response that I had gotten, after I performed. People were like, well, hey, I love that poem. I want, my girlfriend to hear it or something. How can I get it? Mm-hmm. And I never really had anything. I just performed at the open mic. So, one day I decided to just really kind of sit down and take the art form a lot more seriously. And I became a lot more passionate about it. And that kind of led to me releasing my first CD, The Evolution of Dichotomy.
Right. Well, do you remember your first piece?
The first poem, the first poem I ever wrote.
The first poem
I
you
do
ever
remember
wrote.
the first poem I ever wrote.
Go drop a little bit for us.
I mean, it's a little elementary,
That's
Again,
okay.
we talking fourth grade here, so it was.
The growth. Let's
Yeah,
see
exactly,
The growth.
exactly. So, summer is when you're out of school. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cool. Bye bye teachers, bye bye work. Hello bike and hello dirt. Then it's time to clean my room. Hello dustpan, hello broom. A little work, but mostly play. All adds up to a very nice day. There you have it. First poem ever written by Dichotomy.
I love it. I love it. And even with you saying just the simplistic things that you were saying, you still had the same rhythm. So you really just grew and matured in that.
Yeah. I think, for me, one of the things where I try to differentiate myself is that outside of just being a poet, I truly consider myself to be a writer. Like I say all the time, there's a difference between a writer and an author and a poet and a spoken word performer. And I think that once you get into spoken word, really it's your responsibility, or I believe that spoken word artists have to be able to encompass all of those. You have to be able to be a writer first. You have to understand the English language, similes and metaphors, and how words and sentences are put together. But you also have to be able to tell a story. So that makes you kind of an author in that. And then when you get up and you do it from a poetry perspective, it's easy to write it, but then as a performer, you have to be able to stand up and be convincing and kind of draw the audience in. And so there definitely has been a progression. I think I've followed all those steps to kind of get to where I am today.
Right. Well, I tell you what, you're known as Dichotomy. Not everybody doesn't know what a dichotomy is.
Right.
So tell us all what a dichotomy is.
So a dichotomy basically is the splitting of two halves into contradicting parts that comes from a single whole, right? So if you take, one singular thing and you divide it into half, and each part contradicts the other. So, no two can exist in the same place at the same time. And so that's really kind of, my whole deal is the duality of my personalities. And I am one man, but I have these seeming contradictions, as I go through life and kind of learn and grow. And that's really kind of where the name was birthed from.
Well, that sounds like everybody. A lot of us
Exactly.
have. Yeah.
Exactly.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's why your pieces are so relatable.
Yeah, I believe that, when I write poetry, I say all the time that it's not my story. It's our collective story. I just happen to be telling it from my perspective. So.
Well, we're going to talk about the new CD
Right.
and all that. But like I said, I want to give a beginning and a middle and end for those who don't know who you are. So let's talk about the first CD just a little bit. And we cannot talk about the first CD without mentioning, I think he even outshined you.
Yeah.
Your nephew,
Right.
Brendan.
Yeah. So my nephew Brendan, he actually did make an appearance on the CD, and it's interesting. The first CD that I did completely on my own. So I kind of went off of the beaten path. Typically, when poets or artists look to put the CD together, they engage a producer, they go into the studio, and they kind of put tracks together. And for me, I wanted to know how could I do it, on my own. So I went to a music store and I said, what components do I need if I want to try to get into putting together a CD. And so they told me about the type of microphone I needed and the type of software and all of that stuff. And so I really bought all of that and started, in my room. So that first CD was completely done on my own. And so I would be in there performing, and my nephew was living with me at the time, and he came in and he was like, Uncle V, I can do spoken word. And I'm like, Brendan, you can't, He's like, no, for real. I said, okay. So I put the headphones on him. I gave him the mic, and he went straight off of the top of his head, and he performed something. I was like, wow, like I really need to use that. And so that's really kind of how it was. The beauty of it was how organic the whole thing was.
Right.
It wasn't anything rehearsed. He just came in and did his thing, and now people are asking me when Brendan's, CD's coming out. So.
Right. That is very true, because that's the one thing that I loved about the first and the second CD, that you let it play organically. There's no edit there. A kid's just being a kid, saying what a kid has to say. And also, you're known as Dichotomy, but he kind of changed the game a little bit for you.
He did. So, when I first started doing poetry, I was known as Poetic Vernacular. That was the name that I had gone by, and a lot of syllables, kind of associated with that. And so as I was doing the evolution, I kind of came up with that dichotomy. But what happened was, he didn't know what a dichotomy was, and he only knew me as Uncle V. So on the CD, he refers to me as Uncle V. And so it took me a year and a half enough to get people to call me Dichotomy instead of Poetic Vernacular. And in the 30 seconds that he was on the CD, he now changed. It's now everybody refers to me as Uncle V instead of Dichotomy. So I owe that to him as well.
Right. Well, I definitely want to give a shout out to Brendan, and we look forward to his CD for sure.
Coming soon. Keep an eye out.
Definitely. So, going by the first CD, gosh, there were so many things that you talked about. The truth, which is probably one of the most popular poetic expressions that you used on that CD. Talk about that. Talk about where that came from.
So the truth is probably the most popular piece or most requested one on the CD in and of itself, and really that came from the fact that I had a little sister. So I was living in Atlanta at the time, and my little sister was in Atlanta. She was living with me, and so we would go out, from time to time, and I would be in her presence, kind of far enough away to let her kind of do her thing, but close enough to kind of keep track of what was going on. And I was amazed at how she was being approached, like what was being said to her, to try to get her attention, and shouting, where your name is, where your man at, all that kind of foolishness. And so I know, how I was raised, and I know how, I understood the art of courting a woman and being chivalrous and all of those things. And so I felt like I needed to put something together to speak for the other side, the other half of the men who understand that, chivalry isn't dead. There is a proper way to court a woman, to approach a woman, and speak to a woman. And so that was a poem written by me, but it's really on behalf of all of those dudes, who really are the other side and who are less represented in a lot of the poetry and songs that you hear. So that's kind of where that piece came from.
Okay. So that's very good, because that's, again, what you're good at doing is really bringing to light different elements of the approach. And you understand the different sides. So, and you have a lot of big hits on there. Another one was "Lie to Me," and tell me, where were you? Because your poetry pieces are raw, and we definitely can hear the sincerity from them. So they're coming from a certain place. So talk about that.
I mean, I think for any poet, the easiest thing to start writing about is emotion, right? You write what's familiar to you, you write what you experience, and it really kind of comes easier for that. So the evolution is really, a combination of a bunch of different experiences that either happen to me directly or indirectly. And so, Lie to Me is basically about infidelity on the part of the woman. A lot of times when you go to, open mic spots, or you listen to Mary J. Blige or Keisha Cole, they're good to tell you about all the stuff that the man did, but you never hear, them kind of talking about what
nothing.
Exactly. So, and that's the reason why, I wrote that piece, Lie to Me. So, really, what I wanted to try to do was just tell a story from a different perspective. You'll hear poems and songs about cheating all the time, but very rarely will you hear it talk about how the woman cheated and how the man was hurt by it. We're taught that we have to have this bravado and that kind of thing. So, Lie to Me is that. And My Spoken Word is a poem where I write about growing as a man and being the player and doing all of that, and then finding my ways, right? It's another perspective. You'll hear a lot of women talk about what dudes did, but you'll never hear a man stand up and say, yes, I did that. It was wrong, and I kind of grew from it. So to your point, I'm talking about experiences that we can all relate to, but just from a different kind of perspective, because it's something that I've experienced myself.
Was that something that you then had to, was it hard to perform? It's like, because you're exposing yourself at that point.
Yeah, that was originally a difficult piece to perform, simply because it becomes difficult at some point to separate the person from the poetry. You know what I'm saying? So what was happening was I would perform it, and I would get off stage, and I would get all these mean and dirty looks or whatever. I was like, that's the man that I used to be, because when I would say the poem, it would take most women back to the moment when that man did that to them, and they kind of relived it. And so it was good, because it was like, I want to hear it. I want my girlfriends to hear it. I think my ex-boyfriend needs to hear it or whatever. But by the same token, it was difficult, because I'm sitting there, admitting all of the wrong that I had done, and nobody wants to talk about their own faults and really kind of expose themselves to that. So it was a difficult piece to do, but I think now it evokes conversation, and at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, whether you agree with what I said or not. If it evokes a conversation that you can have with your friends or your mate, then I've accomplished what I'm trying to do.
Right. So when you were performing all of these different pieces on stage, did you ever be like, damn,